What's up, the generation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by DraftKings. This is the College Football National Championship betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Collin Wilson, Mike Calabrese, and the one and only Josh Nunn, aka Duck. It's part 7. We've made it. It's the final episode of the season. Which makes me sad. Another college football season in the books. For what it's worth, Calabrese on a heater, 10-0 heater in the college football playoff. And as a podcast for bowl season, went back and every single bet that we recommended 56, 42, and 5 plus 16.66 units entering the title game. So hopefully we can end on a bang. If you haven't already listened, we've already had college basketball episodes, which will continue through the national championship there. I'll be joining the mix, I believe, next week. So make sure you continue to listen to those episodes in the feed. Fun college basketball season so far and should get good going forward. We're gonna not only preview the national championship, gambling Heisman Award. We will give that out today. And the voicemail caller of the year. We'll reminisce on some of the most memorable voicemails from the season. Before we do get started, I'll throw to myself for a quick word from DraftKings. Big Bets on Campus podcast is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook. And in partnership with DraftKings, our listeners get a great new offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on star player props and in-progress games right as they happen. To get started, use promo code BBOC when signing up at DraftKings. That's code BBOC when signing up with DraftKings for $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours. All right, gentlemen, before we get to the national championship semifinals, Miami with a last minute thrilling win over Ole Miss, and Indiana took Oregon out behind the woodshed and ended their season in dominant fashion, setting up the national championship here. Did you have any thoughts on the two semifinal games? My first thought is I had Ole Miss plus 3.5, and which would have covered if they didn't get the 2-point conversion. One of the rare times betting is so funny where you're rooting for Ole Miss the entire game, and then there's a play where you're rooting squarely against your team because they don't get that Miami that kicks a field goal at the end. So Mario also not going for two before then was very interesting decision, but a thrilling game. I will ask each of you, should it have been pass interference? I say yes. I don't think if you were the ref, do you throw the flag there? So like my gut, I tweeted right away, that's PI, but you can't really decide the game on that. And they never call PI on Hail Marys. It's happened like once. But was that a Hail Mary? Like it was like a 30, it was from the 30. I don't know. Duck, would you have called PI there?
Well, it was a regular football play instead of a traditional Hail Mary. They were close enough. And I just do not like how the final play is adjudicated differently than the remaining 59 minutes and 59 seconds of the game. And so I think there should be some consistency in how the end of game scenario is called. I was fine with the explanation that it was mutual combat. There was hand fighting both ways, but I think the final play of the game should be called kind of in accordance with how the rest of the game was called. That's how the players have adapted to play the game based on how the officials have called it earlier. So I would like to see some more consistency with that.
Breeze?
I mean, obviously, I was the beneficiary of it, so I'm biased. If they had thrown the flag, I wouldn't have been shocked. Like, I waited a good 5 count. Players are running on the field. I was like, a flag could still come out here. I usually side on a last play Hail Mary, and I agree. We're splitting hairs. Like, was it Hail Mary? Was it not? Generally, I have a feeling it's like triple overtime in an NHL playoff game. Like, the refs usually swallow the whistle. They don't want to have, a penalty be the reason why one team advances. But that being said, I think it was like a 60-40 situation. So if it had gone the other way, I don't think I would have been crying over it because any other play in that game, that would have been pass interference.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't if when he was grabbing him down the field, like maybe the last yank. I don't know. It's not like it was a. I think I just wanted to see one more play because it was like from the 15 that they obviously wouldn't have been favorites to score, but who doesn't want more football? Colin, would you have called PI there?
Well, first off, the game was completely inconsistent when it came to flags. It was some egregious calls, and then there were things that never got called that should have been called. So, am I surprised that both players are tugging on each other going to the ground and there was no flag? Not surprised. I mean, I kind of fall in the book of it's the last play of the game. It's in the back of the end zone. You're not going to call PI no matter what. It's every man for himself. It's carnage. It's a zoo. So I will stand by the way I always am and say, no, there shouldn't have been a flag there because that is the biggest point of you want to let them play it out. Then again, the guy that's trying to catch the ball for Ole Miss was Stribling was literally being thrown to the ground. So, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the unwritten rule that you don't decide the game, right? You don't throw the flag.
Mhm.
But that's I wish I kind of agree with Duck that I wish that it wouldn't be different because it's a slippery slope. Like, where's the line, right? Like, is it to the? It's like it was the second to last play you call it, and then you what like how egregious does it have to be for you to act like to just tackle all the receivers in the end zone? But that was actually a thrilling game from
Stuck, it's
start to
akin
finish.
to a last second shot in college basketball, and we see this happen all the time, but you still see referees officiate consistently at the end at times. And not always, but if a guy's going up for a mid-range jumper to win the game, and if he gets hit, they're gonna blow the whistle and call a
Oh
foul
yeah,
more often
yep,
than not.
agree,
yeah, there's
agree.
14 penalties in the game. There could have been 20. And frankly, Ole Miss's season is dead because of that face mask at the end of the game in the secondary. Like, I mean, that was a fourth down play. The game would have been over. Ole Miss would have won. So it's really hard to say like who the true clear winner is, even if you have a post game win expectancy, it's at 50% because there were so many flags and a lot of them were missed. And but that play right there, I just you have to swallow the flag, which they did.
Yeah, it felt like kind of a coin flipish game. Um, like if Miami was better early. For the first quarter, Miami was a lot better. I mean, Ole Miss had like a 0% success rate, I think, in the first quarter. But from then on, it felt like if Ole Miss had a little bit more time, then they were going down and scoring a touchdown. But if Miami had the ball last, which they did, they were going like so.
Well, there was a key sequence that actually applies to this national title. And when Ahmad Moten went down for the Miami defensive line, Keywan Lacey immediately hit the A gap and busted the 73-yarder, pulled a hammy there at the 30 there. But really, that is when the Ole Miss offense woke up, is when the defensive interior for Miami had their best player go and sit out. So
Yeah,
that
Miami had some defensive injuries at the end, which helped with
Mhm.
some of the Ole Miss offensive success late. You had what there was targeting. You were down to a true freshman on the outside at corner. Messidor left. So they had a number of injuries that definitely contributed. But hell of a season for Ole Miss, heartbreaking way for it to end. And then Indiana just uh, dominated Oregon from the first play, a pick six, all the way until the end, setting up the national championship. Miami versus Indiana in Miami. Indiana, the home team in Miami. Miami is we'll call them, I'd say 8.5 point home dog, total 47.5 at DraftKings. This game will be played obviously Monday night, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Now, the first thing that I struggled with in this game, I still don't know my true number for the home field advantage here. It's not, I don't have, I'm not assigning full home field. advantage. Like as of right now, I went with like 1.5 points. And as of right now, because like this is Indiana's the largest alumni base in the country. And this is their all in. I know they're a program on the rise and or might just be always in this discussion, but like Indiana football has a chance to win the national championship. And so, like, if you can afford to go, you're going. So I could see this crowd being 50-50. Um, so there is obviously still some advantage to playing at home uh but maybe there's also distractions being at home for a national championship. So we'll see. I went with 1.5. I currently have Indiana as a 10-point favorite over Miami on a neutral field. So I'm right around 8.5. Even if this line went to 10, I'm not getting in the way of Indiana. This is very reminiscent of LSU in 2019, where markets simply can't catch up to LSU and they can't catch up to Indiana. And there was even sharp money that faded LSU in the national championship. I I
And it was
faded.
what, 10-0 Clemson to start that game too, before the roof caved in on the
Yeah,
Tigers.
that was me at the Westgate with Trevor Lawrence Love. You remember that stuck? It
Yep.
was
I finally, yeah, Colin was one of them. I faded LSU all year, lost a bunch fading them, and then in the national title, I said I can't catch up, but I can't catch up with these numbers honestly, but I don't care. And then I just bet LSU. So luckily I haven't been fading Indiana. The last time I faded Indiana was against Purdue, um, and so, but like this is just a train. I'm not sure markets can catch up. Now the look ahead was 5.5, not the most efficient number, but obviously that went up after Indiana completely dismantled Oregon. So I'm curious on, I mean, what Indiana does is they're just efficiency monsters. They just execute on every play in a disciplined fashion. They never beat themselves. They do. I talked about this. I thought this was going to be the difference against Oregon. I'm like, look at third down offense, third down defense, penalties, giveaways, takeaways. Like they don't do any of those things, and they do all the things you need to do to not be yourselves at an elite level. All the things that might not be captured in just the pure statistical profile of a team. So and now they're playing a team that does do those things that can beat themselves. Penalties, because if you just look at how Miami plays like kind of reckless, right? And that's just kind of who they are. But that leads to a lot of penalties, undisciplined plays. Beck is much more likely to turn the ball over here than Mendoza. So the penalties, the turnover margin, all of that stuff is probably going to be in Indiana's favor. And you don't want to fall behind if you're Miami in this game. I can tell you, this is, I can tell you my first thoughts again. I mean, I like the under for sure. We'll get into props in a bit as well. This game should be extremely slow paced. Now, there's a chance it's a national title game. Maybe Indiana says we're going to come out and go tempo. We're gonna we're gonna just try to wear down Miami's defensive line. But from what we've seen all year, both of these teams are very methodical. I do think that Miami's defensive line can make some plays here that most of Indiana's opponents have not been able to. And I'll get into a prop that I like in that regard in a bit. But the right side of the Indiana offensive line is a bit vulnerable. From center to left guard to left tackle, they are elite. I mean, Carter Smith has turned into an elite left tackle. They have a healthy Drew Evans at left guard. Coogan is a big upgrade at center this year. It's one of the reasons their offensive line is much better. But that right guard, right tackle with Benson, a little vulnerable, and I think Miami can create some negative plays there. And what Miami wants to do, Miami wants to go on. Ideally, the way this game plays out for Miami is they want to go on, a 15 play, 9-minute drive and eat up the clock, shorten the game. I do think they'll have some success running the ball, but there's going to be some third down situations where these blitz packages and pressure packages from Indiana confuse and befuddle every single quarterback that they face. So I think this is going to be like a field position game and defenses control throughout. I think this plays out more like so Indiana Oregon the first meeting, because you got to remember you look at that Indiana Oregon game. Oregon gifted them like what 21 points, a pick six in the first play of the game, and then that game got out of hand. The first Indiana Oregon game, which also had a pick six, that was played like a pure under game from start to finish. Indiana Ohio State, dead nuts under. Indiana Iowa, dead nuts under. So I think that's how this plays out. So I do like the under here. Calabrese, I know that you agree. Do you have any thoughts that you want to add?
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of slow starts from Miami offensively. The last four games dating back to their regular season finale against Pitt, they've scored a grand total of 6 first quarter points. And I think Shannon Dawson, when he's putting together this game script, he wants to establish the run. You want to see Mario on the sideline fist pumping as they push the pile from 3 yards to 8 yards. It's offensive line coach porn. That's what I called it in the game against Ole Miss. I think that's how I'm going to describe their scripted stuff here, at least at the beginning. And that Oregon tape, I think, only makes them more conservative because, Dante Moore throws them out of the game, puts them behind the 8 ball right away. They don't want to put Carson back in a position. They want this to be in the third quarter and certainly in the fourth quarter, giving themselves a puncher's chance. So you got to shrink the game down. And then when you think about it in terms of explosives, Miami can't create any explosives on the ground. They're 133rd in rush EPA. They only broke 4 runs of 30 plus yards the entire season. And when they do go to the air, they have more success creating big plays, but that's where Indiana has a strength. They're fourth in coverage. They're buttoned up in that regard, second in tackling, first in havoc. Obviously, the scary part of backing it under here, and I wish I could have had it, closer to 50, but I'm still going to play under 47.5, is that Indiana scored 35 against Bama. They scored 56 against Oregon. But as you pointed out accurately, Stuck, when I look for the apples to apples comparison, I'm focusing in on that Ohio State game and that Iowa game. And I think Miami has the kind of elite defense, just like those top 10 defenses from the Hawkeyes and Buckeyes, to be able to, throw Mendoza off his timing a little bit. Collin brought up a great point leading into their game in the desert, which was that field conditions, was that going to impact the pass rush from Miami? They only got home once. They still generated 17 pressures on Chambliss, which was a season high for him facing that, forced more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. So I see something similar here. When you look at Iowa and Ohio State, Iowa heated them up 12 times, 2 sacks. Ohio State, 13 pressures, 3 sacks. So I think this Miami defensive line continues to be a game plan wrecker. And if they can, be healthy for full 60 minutes, I think there's going to be multiple times when they get them off schedule and they're going to be in known passing situations. And then Mendoza, we'll see. He's manipulated the pocket really well at times this year, but he's not someone who necessarily is a magician in the way that Chambliss was, being able to extend plays. The last piece of it here, when I look at the coaching staffs, both of them have been really good in the second half on the defensive side of the ball. Indiana, second half scoring defense, first in the country, 5.2 points per game. Miami in the third quarter in particular, less than 3 points per game allowed there in the 15 minutes following the halftime break. And remember, Heatherman worked for Cignetti at James Madison. He was the AFCA's assistant coach of the year at the FCS level. Cignetti has said all these glowing things about him as a game planner. He knows how Sig plans for games and also how he adapts. So I think this is going to be more of a brutal trench warfare kind of game and a chess match in the second half between two really good defensive staffs. So as long as we don't get those fluky non-offensive touchdowns, I just don't think there's going to be enough explosive plays to push this one over the number. Hopefully Miami can keep it within, a 10-point kind of range, because if it does start to get out of control, that's when you could see Beck, someone who's thrown 4 interceptions in a game this season, really start to press, and that's when things could snowball a little bit. That's my only concern with this total.
Yeah, I also am curious, like, does Sig, I guess they don't know any other way, but if they're up big, do they not press it as much? I don't know. Like, there's no message to send. There's no that. But I mean, maybe he just only knows one way. By the way, even if Miami is able to methodically move the ball down the field, I'll give you a guess. How many rushing touchdowns in the red zone do you think Indiana has given up this year?
6.
I'll say less. 5.
2.
4. How about passing touchdowns in the red zone?
2.
5.
Well, they've given up nine.
Both.
They've given up 9 red zone touchdowns total,
Yeah.
but only 6 before the Oregon game. So before the Oregon game, it was 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the one was in guard time, but yeah, 4 and 5, both fewest in the nation. So like Ohio, they'll be Indiana will be able, I think, to hold Miami to field goals once they get down into the red zone, when they are able to drive the field, eating up clock, right? And then that's ideally what you want for an under, long methodical drives and in field goals. Um, Colin, I know that before we talk side here, and by the way, this isn't like your most ideal conditions. This is in Miami, right? It's grass. It's technically open air. So it's not like the fastest conditions possible. Before we get to the side, Colin, you like the first half under here?
Yeah, but I'm gonna go first half instead of full game with you guys. And it's one of those things where there's a number of factors I want to avoid. Number one, if Signetti gets a little hair up his ass and feels like he's Kirby in SoFi in the national title game against TCU and wants to throw 70 up on the board, I don't know what his attitude is. I don't know what his feelings are towards the Miami program and the coaches, and I don't even want to try to guess what this man is thinking if he wants to put extra points up on the board. And is Baby Mendoza going to come out there and just like hand the ball off? I don't know. I don't want anything to do with the fact that this could be an Indiana blowout like all of them have been. And then he's looking at what, his 8th or ninth 50 burger. I don't even want to mess with that. So in the first half, also there's another thing. The pass rush, I've said this for a couple of weeks. The pass rush for Miami on the defensive line is not as good as it's been during the regular season, especially down the stretch when they were plowing through ACC teams. Ruben Bain did have 5 pressures, but he didn't get anything home. Messidor was great again, but at the same time, he got hurt. And even though Cristobal said yesterday in a press conference that Messidor is going to be completely fine, it is something that he got taken off that field. I couldn't even find him in the locker room. I was in the locker room for 30 minutes after the game, and he wasn't even available to anybody. I could stand next to Carson Beck and talk about who he's dating and what he's getting on DoorDash at night, but I couldn't find Messidor at all. So, when I'm looking at this, I want to avoid a Miami defensive line that I've seen get gassed, because if that happens in the second half, there could be some points there. I think in the first half, look at these two teams. I mean, Stuck, you mentioned what Indiana has been just dead nut under games. Have you looked at Miami in these 3 playoff games? They've scored a combined 3 points in 3 games in the first quarter. These first halves have been absolutely nothing. Miami hasn't been able to figure it out on offense until the second quarter. And by the way, these two teams are top 5 in the nation in defensive scoring in the first half. They average 4.7 points allowed by Miami and 6.2 points allowed by Indiana. It's almost as if their scripted portion is going to be dominated by the defenses. Then they're going to come out and find something. And again, we don't know injuries, right? I mean, the second Moten was hurt. That's when Kewan Lacey took off. But I think from the scripted portion of the game, it's going to be extremely low scoring, and I don't think they're going to take chances. And let me mention this too. Carson Beck had Tony behind the Ole Miss secondary 3 times and did not find him at the beginning of that first half of that game. And I think finally, like, Tony had to come over and tell him, like, dude, you know how you're going to beat quarters coverage? Get behind it, because everything behind quarters coverage is man coverage. So I'm going to be behind them. And then they finally found each other, and that's when Miami's offense took off. So for a lot of reasons, I think game development, game script, the history of what's happened in the first halves between these two teams, and the potential, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the potential Signetti 50 burger hanging out there in the second half, I'm taking first half under.
I don't mind the first half under either. It looks like Messidor, minor arm injury, should be okay from the reports, but again, you never know. He said Moten was full go. Chris Paul said Moten was full go in practice. He said Frederic should be able to go. Damari Brown is more day to day. I don't know if he's going to play. It is worth mentioning Frederic is important because Xavier Lucas is suspended for the first half, which is, I don't think that should be the case, but that's a conversation for another day. Like there should be, first of all, there should be 2 types of targeting. And and one should not be like you get thrown out of the game and suspended for the next first half. And that was the type of targeting that should be. But anyway, maybe Elijah Lofton is the one that's most in question for Miami. But you want Frederic in there because if Lucas can't go and Brown can't go, then you're down to a true freshman on the outside, but it looks like Miami won't have to go that far down its depth chart. Duck, you're just gonna jump on the train and ride with Sig and not get in the way of this locomotive. You like the Hoosiers?
I do. One thing I will say to support the under positions, which I do think it's interesting, there's going to be a significant feeling out process. I would expect both coaching staffs to at least start this game in the scripted portion a little bit more conservatively. Miami first quarter unders have been loot. This is from the second half of the season on. And combined, these two teams have only attempted 38 total fourth down attempts. And so I think you will see, rather than electing to try to execute a high risk, high reward situation right out of the gate, you might see something like Miami first drive punt, Indiana first drive punt, first quarter under, and then we play ball. So if you like something like that, that's about 5-1 if you want to try and doyle all those together. This is a battle between two really, really good top 15 programs. The differences between these two, when you go unit by unit, the advantages are marginal and incremental. I think we all love Miami's pass rush. They led FBS in sacks with 47. They were seventh in tackles for loss with 96. I was a little bit surprised, however, that this group did not get home as frequently against Trinidad and Ole Miss as we maybe thought they would have. Definitely provoked some scoring. There were some missed drops on some interceptions. And I just wonder if Miami's defensive line is going to be that as it was against Ole Miss. If Indiana's offensive line, which is sixth per PFF in run blocking and 14th in pass blocking, if they're going to be able to hold on long enough in the trenches to give Mendoza time to throw the ball. Miami does have a top 25 level secondary, but I am concerned about their composite tackling grades, which are just 120th nationally. If Indiana's receivers win the one-on-one battles and make guys miss, there could be some explosive plays for Indiana in this game. This comes down to me three important factors. There is a discipline discrepancy. Miami is the fifth most heavily penalized team in FBS, and Indiana had the 10th fewest accepted penalties against them with the sixth fewest penalty yards assessed. And so, in a game of this magnitude, bonehead penalties or some of the reckless play could really cost Miami in this game. It has not cost Indiana so far as we've gone 15-0 this season with them. Red zone defense, like we had already hit home on, Indiana had allowed just 6 red zone touchdowns before the Oregon game and 34% touchdown percentage. I think when the field gets compressed, the throwing lanes get truncated, the receiving windows become so minuscule, and I worry about Miami being able to produce in the red zone to a level necessary to threaten winning this game or staying within the number. Last thing for me, big special teams advantage. Indiana composite special teams ranking is 5th nationally. Miami's is 49th. I think Indiana's a little better in the trenches. They're better on special teams. They're better situationally with their execution. I think that they win this game and cover the 8.5.
Let me throw something out there because we're all on the under, right? And there is something that kills unders. And what happens? Special teams and defense kills unders with pick sixes and run backs. I would just want to throw it out there that in the national title preview coming out, there is an Indiana first score of the game, 35-1 defensive special teams. In 15 games that Indiana's played this year, 4 times their first scores come from the defense. So that could be something you might want to grab at anytime TD by defense special teams, either team, to go with this under.
I also will say that, I mean, this Indiana offense, Mendoza's accuracy, the wide receivers, their contested catch rates. I mean, they come down with so many balls. And this Indiana offense, they haven't even had their full set of receivers for the majority of the season, right? Surratt was out. Becker wasn't even a thing early in the season. I mean, the first meeting with Oregon, what did he play? 3 snaps? And he's added an element of that deep threat. And talk about great hands and going up and making contested catches. He just makes that offense even more dynamic. And the way to beat this Indiana defense is to hit explosive passing plays. That's not really Miami's offense. They're not the most explosive offense. I mean, Indiana's going to have I can imagine they're going to have Tony screens scouted very well, but it's an aggressive Indiana defense. They will give up some explosives. That's not really Miami's offense, which I do think plays in to the under. Let's talk some props. I my favorite prop is Mendoza under rushing yards. So I think let me see what is this number at? 16 and a half, still good. Um, I played some 18 and a half earlier this week. Would play it down to like 15 and a half. So the number's still fine out there. If you look like let's start on the Miami side. Miami this year in 14 games versus FBS teams, they've there's been 127 rush attempts by quarterbacks against them. They've allowed 14 total rushing yards. That's zero point 0.1 per attempt. That's a lot of that is because they have 46 sacks. They're number 3 in the country in sack rate. That obviously plays a big part in this. And it's not like they haven't faced mobile quarterbacks. They just faced Chambliss, who finished with 7 yards. They faced Marcel Reed, who got the 27. He had 15 rush attempts. Uh, let's see, who else? Drones and Watson, that Va-Tech combination. I mean, Drones got to 30 yards on 14 carries. Who else? I mean, the Syracuse got Filardi and Collins. They can run a little bit. Castellanos, he got to 50 plus, but again, had a ton of rushing attempts. That's their offense. Byron Brown, quarterback who ran for 1,000 yards. He had 13 carries for 2 yards. So I mean, they faced a ton of rushing quarterbacks. If you look at their yards per attempt, yards per game average versus what they did against Miami, the only quarterback to exceed their yards per attempt and yards per game average was CJ Carr in the opener, who ran it 11 times for 16 yards. So let's look at Indiana and Mendoza. This year, he has 83 carries for 284 yards, averaging about 3.5 yards per attempt. He's been sacked 22 times. So he's only gone under 18 and a half in 5 of his 15 games, but he's averaging around 18 and a half yards per game. So I think 18 and a half, 18 would have been a fair line if he wasn't playing Miami. Miami is going to get more sacks here. I mean, he's averaging like right around 1 sack per game. I think Miami is probably good for 3 to 4 sacks in this game. We also like the under. I think it's going to be lower possession game, which helps with, limit the potential for the amount of runs. But here's the thing. Miami is number 3 in sack rate. Who has Indiana faced and where do they rank in sacks per game? Let's look. The only teams they faced in the top 40 in sack rate are Penn State, who's 34th, Wisconsin, who's 23rd, Ohio State, who's 30th, and Old Dominion in the opener. In those games, those 4 games, he was sacked 12 times. Much higher sack rate than his season-long numbers. I mean, go back to the Wisconsin game. He was sacked 5 times, finished with 6 rushes for negative 24 yards. Against Ohio State, sacked 3 times, 5 rushes for negative 3 yards. Against Alabama, he was sacked 3 times, 8 rushes for 16 yards. So I think this number's too high. I think Miami's going to get to him 3 or 4 times, and he's going to stay under this number. So they really haven't faced anyone that's really, really elite at getting to the quarterback. They will here. I think that's going to impact his rushing numbers. There's a good chance he gets sacked 2 or 3 times for like negative 18 yards. I'm sure he'll have like one big scramble in this game for a first down, but I still like this under. Duff,
Yeah,
I'll go to you. What's that, Colin?
I guarantee it's going to come from Messidor and not from Bain, right? Because I mean, Messidor is going to go. I mean, Carter Smith is going to take care of Bane and no problem. But Khalil Benson on the other side. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
vulnerable part. Benson
yeah,
on
that's the
the
vulnerable.
right side.
Messidor's got the right side to get it done. If you can find a sack prop on Messidor, I'd go over no matter what the number is.
They do move Bane around. So they'll play him all over on the defensive line. So I'm curious to see that rotation and what their lineups are. But that is the vulnerable side. I expect the blitzes to come from that side as well. Um, so Colin, I'll go to you. I know you'll have a write up. I will as well on the national title. Do you want to throw out any props here you like?
Yeah, I've got like 10 of them, but I think the most exciting one that I've got is going to be Miami's receiver, Josh Issa Trader, over 2.5 receiving yards. I feel like I'm pimping something Raybon does on NFL where he's got some obscure thing for 1 yard. But look, the place to attack Indiana is over the middle. They are very soft group of linebackers, particularly Aiden Fisher, when it comes to coverage grading. That goes for the weak side. That goes for the middle linebacker. Like they are not very good, and the place to attack them is in between the hash marks. So you go and you look at all of the Miami receivers that are going to attack that. It's going to be Tony. It's not going to be Marion. It's going to be some Daniels. But the Trader one is quite interesting because you can see that he only has 16 of 23 targets caught this season, but all 16 catches on 23 targets, all of those were in between the hash marks this season. It's the only place that he works. You look at his prop yardage, sure, it's 2.5, but what are we looking for? We're looking for a catch. And if you look at his box scores from the last 8 games, he has received a target, at least one target, 8 straight games, and he's caught a ball in 7 of those 8 games. So I am simply banking on the fact this guy's caught a ball in 7 of the last 8, been targeted in all 8, and he usually averages anywhere from 7 to like 15, maybe 20 yards on that catch. But it's almost a guarantee he's going to get a target from Beck. And if he can make that catch, which he has lately, I think we're going to get over 2.5. So it's going to be one play the entire game that this prop depends on, and we're going to bet that it's going to be electric, and I can't wait. But over 2.5 receiving yards for Josh Issa Trader.
From a game flow perspective too, Colin, if Miami's playing from behind, you're going to see a higher play rate for him and being in those 3 and 4 wide receiver sets that they don't necessarily
Yep.
haven't necessarily had to demonstrate, their reliance on during this run. Really going back to late November, it's been more physicality, setting up, multiple tight end looks to maybe block for Tony on some quick shots. I think you're going to see more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets in the second half if they're playing catch up.
Yep.
Colin, what are you calling him?
It's just JoJo. JoJo's right there. That one's easy.
I know it looks like Joe
Calling his
Shissa.
name like what it looks like on PFF, and
It's spelled Joe Shissa, but it's just Josiah Trader, but JoJo Trader.
there's an I after the H, sir.
Yeah, but he remember coming into the year, all the hoopla was about Trader, not Tony. Remember, like in the
Yeah.
so it's interesting how that has flipped. Any other props you want to throw out, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, for my national title preview, I'd want everybody to go read about it. But like I said before, if you can find a Bane under sack prop, you'd probably want to get that. Messidor over sack prop, I'd want to do that. Indiana 35-1 first score of the game. Defensive special teams, I think is worth it. CJ Daniels is the one that works over the middle of. I think what is it, 7 touchdowns he's had this season. I think 3 of them were the very first of the game. That kind of shocked me. I went through all the game logs to see who the first touchdown was. CJ Daniels accounts for 3 of them for Miami, so I think he's worth an anytime TD or a first TD if you're looking out there. Like I said, I like Malachi Tony over 59, over 60.5. Roman Hemby should absolutely kill the A gaps for Indiana, and where if Moton plays or not. The run defending's not been good against inside zone, and that's one place they're kind of soft, and that favors him be running inside zone for Indiana. So I like that one too. And then uh, this one's a little bit crazy, but you can find it out there. Miami's first score to be a field goal plus 160. I believe like 6 of their last 8 games have started off. Their first score was a field goal. Like they just I don't know what it is, but they're
Yeah, we
kicking
talked about that
goals.
Indiana Red Zone day.
Yeah, that's plus 160. So I'll take Miami's first score plus 160 field goal. That's out there if you want to go find it.
Another thing that I think helps Indiana and the under is they don't really rotate on defense. It's like they have their guys and their base package that they really stick with. And Miami is a very methodical, slow team. So like I think that they're able to do that here without much worry. Calabrese, any props you want to throw out?
Carson Beck under 3.5 rushing yards. I know the enduring image of Beck's career is going to be that game-winning scramble against Ole Miss. He still finished that game -6 rushing yards, and that's just kind of par for the course for him. 7 games this year, he finished with negative rushing yards because of the sacks. He's gone under 3.5 in 9 of his 15 starts. And protection-wise, yes, Miami has an elite offensive line. He's still taken 8 sacks during this playoff run, so it's not as though he's got Secret Service level protection and he's never heated up and he never holds onto the ball too long. So and also I brought it up before. That was with optimal game scripts for Miami, where they could be physical, they could continue to run and be a team that wanted to establish the line of scrimmage first. Miami's trailed for all of 12 minutes and 32 seconds during this playoff run. I think if they're up against it and they have to throw, you're looking at 3 or 4 sacks minimum for Beck in this game. And this Indiana run against Ohio State, Bama, Oregon, 11 sacks. Opposing quarterbacks finished with -48 rushing yards coming into this one. And if you want to go even deeper into their body of work and you want to look at pocket passer comps, Luke Altmaier sacked 7 times by this Hoosier defense, -27 on the ground. Julian Sayin sacked 5 times, -29. Ryan Brown from Purdue, they didn't sack him, but he still finished with 3 rushing yards, so below this number. I think game flow wise, you're going to see Miami in far more known passing down situations. I think Indiana gets home, let's call it 4 times. I just don't see how he can balance that out. He probably would need 20 positive rushing yards to be able to balance out 4 sacks. I don't see it from Beck in this game, so I'm going to go under 3.5. Make sure to shop around. There's a big difference in terms of this market, not only the number between 1 and 3.5, but also the juice on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that all the games that he had negative, and think about all the weeks that Miami is facing just defensive lines that they can simply dominate, right,
Hmm.
with their elite
Yeah.
offensive line. The only other team I think like in the neighborhood of sacks per game of Indiana was like Texas A&M, and he finished that game with what -6 rushing yards, 4 rushes or something for -6 rushing yards. So this Indiana, those their blitz packages, their pressure packages, they're definitely going to get home at least a couple of times against Beck. Anything else you want to throw out there?
No, that's it for this one. I think I may end up looking at some kind of variation of a punt, field goal, punt, punt opening kind of double result for the opening drives, but I need to see what the prices are looking like a little bit closer to kick.
Duck, got any props
Yeah,
or anything you want to throw out there? Go anywhere you want.
Indiana receiver Charlie Becker, over 2.5 catches. He has been such a reliable third option in this offense, with most of the attention in the receiver room being given to Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. Becker had 2 catches in each of the first 2 playoff games, with Indiana having wiped the floor with Alabama and Oregon, and really didn't have a lot of high pressure situations in the second half. And as a result, Indiana ran the ball 90 times in those 2 games against just 36 passing attempts. But when you look this season at when Indiana has to have it, against Penn State, a game that they were in a 4 quarter battle with, Becker had 7 catches for 118 yards. Against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, 6 catches for 126 yards. Only 2 in each of the playoff games, but with such limited opportunities due to winning these games by 5 touchdowns, there was just limited opportunity and limited pressure for him to make plays. I think there will be a situation in this game where Indiana has to have it, and Becker has just become a guy that Mendoza trusts in these situations. I think he'll find himself open for at least 3 catches.
Anything else you want to throw out there?
Um, it's such a wild market, and there are so many things that you could look at. I didn't have a lot that I saw a lot of value. I'm with Calabrese that I could see an opening drive script, like I said before, punt, first quarter under, or something of that nature. You can wrap all that into one and have a juicy payout.
Final score predictions. I'm gonna say 20 Indiana, 27 Miami, 16. Calabrese.
It's crazy. I thought you were going to drop my number 27-13 Indiana.
Duck.
Um, 28 18, 28-18.
But funny enough, 28-18 is exactly what my projections on a neutral make this. 28.1 to 18.2. Colin?
I'll go 28-20. I mean, I could be talked into 27-20, but
That would be a key
that's
number
pretty great.
differential there,
Yes,
Colin.
Yeah,
Pretty
pretty
nice if
good
we get
one.
27-20.
But I'm going to avoid it with the first half under. So,
Colin, any guarantees that Indiana will not cover this week?
as much as I said that Oregon's going to cover the game, I would like to come on here and say that Miami's going to cover the game. They keep seeming to find a way to get these things done, even though we've doubted. I mean, I didn't doubt them against Ohio State, but um, we still haven't seen Cristobal affect a game, right? I mean, there's some
He's
things that
tried. He tried against
yeah,
A&M.
he's trying. There's going to be a big section. I think there's one thing for Indiana you got to look out for, and there are false start penalties. Believe it or not, Indiana is like one of the highest false start penalty teams in the nation, like 1.7 per game. The official is coming out of the Big 12 here. He's done two Rose Bowl games in a row, and he is, believe, the sixth highest caller of false start. He also calls a lot of defensive PI, but both Miami and Indiana have been bottom 20 teams in getting called for defensive PI. But I really think you got to look for Indiana getting called at least twice for false starts. So I'm not going to say, I mean, if I had to bet, I'd take Indiana. I'd take Indiana at the 8. I mean, this is the discussion you started off with first, Stuck. Do you give them home field advantage? Well, what kind of things go into home field advantage? Like familiarity? Well, Miami's got that. Don't have to travel. They should be rested. Knows the turf, knows what shoes they should be wearing from the very first spot, of course. I mean, they've had different conditions against Notre Dame and ACC play and all this other stuff. They're going to exactly know what to do. The locker room, they actually move to the Dolphins locker room when they play their biggest games. So it's just a much nicer locker room, and it's not that big of a deal to them. So what do you consider their home field advantage? At Action Network, I created this thing where I had a 10 and a 3-year sample set where I actually look at how much you cover at home, because how much you cover at home should really dictate what your home field advantage is. Not really if you're loud, not really if there's like a track around the field like at Eastern Michigan and Yipsy. Like it's really about how much are you covering the spread by. And what I do is a deviation off +2.5. Miami's plus is 2.6.
That's what I have Miami at too, 2.6.
So do I cut that in half and make it 1.3, which is how I came upon my number that other podcasts like the guys over at Chicken Dinner like to talk shit about me. That's how I came to 1.3 and added it to the power rating, because 1.3 is I think there's going to be more Indiana fans there than there is going to be Miami. So I kind of cut the home field advantage in half, applied it, and that's how I got to a power rating of about 6 in this game. So if I had to make a decision, I'd say Miami covers. I don't think they're going to win, but I'd say they cover.
I mean, I just did a blanket 1.5, and I was at 10 on it. It wouldn't matter if I made it 8.7 or 8.5. I do think it's going to be 50-50. That's my guess for fans. Does anyone disagree or have a hot take?
I think Indiana will have more fan constituents.
What do you think, like 60-40?
Pretty close to that. Yeah. I mean, these guys are showing up. You mentioned
Yeah.
already largest alumni base. These guys, I'll just go real quick on this. If you just look at where Indiana was at 730 days ago, I went back and looked at it when Cignetti took over. They were 3-9, losing to Purdue, getting blown out at Maryland by 4 touchdowns, taking quadruple overtime in order to beat Akron. I mean, it's just unreal that in that short of time, just 2 years, that they're doing this and they're just pounding traditional blue blood programs into oblivion and just making mincemeat out of these teams in the trenches. What Cignetti has done is unreal, and you get this fan base with a chance to win a national championship. Like you guys had said early on, anyone who can afford it, they are absolutely showing up here.
This is it. The college football playoffs come down to one final game. All eyes will be on the national championship, and if you or someone you know is still looking for the best way to watch, you need to check out Sling TV. Sling TV offers flexible package options of 1, 3, and 7-day passes for access to 30-plus live channels, which includes ESPN and TNT. So you're covered for the national championship and more. So let's have some fun with props and build a same-game parlay for the Natty, presented by Sling TV. Colin, which prop are you going to roll with here?
Let's roll with my favorite first name of any player in this game, Josiah Trader, over 2.5 receiving yards. He has received a target in 8 straight games. He's caught a ball in 7 of those 8 games, and they're generally for way more than 2.5 yards. Trader over 2.5 receiving yards.
Duck.
We'll go Charlie Becker, 3 or more catches. Just an exquisite third option for them. Great hands, makes the tough contested catches. I think he'll have at least 3 catches in this game.
Mike.
Don't be fooled by the late game scramble by Carson Beck. He's going under 3.5 rushing yards in this game. He's going to be under fire consistently. This will be the 8th game of his season that he finishes with negative rushing yards. Go under 3.5.
And I'll go with Mendoza under rushing yards. We'll go with under 16.5 out there, widely available. He will be sacked more often than he is in a normal game this year. He averages around 18 anyway, but Miami has allowed 14 total rushing yards to quarterbacks on 127 attempts this year, 0.1 per attempt, and they faced a number of very mobile quarterbacks. So let's go with Mendoza under rushing yards. We got Trader over 2.5 reception yards, Becker over 2.5 catches, Beck and Mendoza under rushing yards, pays about 8-1. So whether you're cheering for Miami or Indiana in the championship, Sling TV is your solution to instant access to live TV starting as low as $4.99. There isn't a better time to acquaint yourself with 1, 3, and 7-day passes from Sling TV. Offer applies to Orange 1-day pass. Restrictions apply. All right, it's time for the voicemail caller of the year. We had some amazing voicemail callers this season, and we thank you for participating and sending your voicemails in, especially like late at night after a few beverages. Those are always our favorite. Colin and I will guess what type of alcohol induced some of those calls. But before we announce this season's voicemail caller of the year, here's a quick montage of some of our favorites.
This USC Notre Dame game, my God. Take plus 9.5 early in the week. Goes to 10.5 right before game time. That's not going to matter, right? Shouldn't have. Except USC could up a wet dream. Oh my God. What a joke. Lincoln Riley, this Lemon, this Maeva, whatever the his name is. These guys had an easy cover. Probably could have won the game if not for special teams. Everything in the world going wrong. Then that game ends. They flip over to Tennessee to cover over 58.5. They get on the doorstep twice. Don't kick the field goal down 17 when you're up with 4 minutes to go. And then, did he get in? I have no idea. Game's over. Reaches across the goal line. No replay. This is bullshit. What a beat. Unbelievable.
I think Bill Belichick needs to be next in the line of people being investigated for illegal gambling, because why the hell are you calling a timeout with 25 seconds left and letting the Wake Forest team total go over? Unbelievable.
Hey guys, I'm reporting live from floating above my bed while priests hold crosses in the air. Today I had Memphis UAB over 58.5. I had Tennessee team total over 23.5. I had over 58.5 in the Bama Tennessee game, and I had Kentucky money line. So I fully need an exorcism, and I'm gonna go walk upside down downstairs and pee on the floor.
All right, y'all. I'm currently sitting outside my aunt's celebration of life. Rest in peace to my Aunt Pam. She was a great lady. I got the Missouri-Alabama over, 51.5. Looked like it was dead. I was game catching it. Saw Bama got the ball back on the onside. I was like, it's over. Check my phone. Mizzou's got the ball back. They got a chance. Go out to my car, sit down, boot up the stream. As I press play, I hear Joe Tessitore, and it's intercepted. Now I got to walk back inside, act like nothing happened, talk to a bunch of distant family members that I barely know. Hope you guys are having a better Saturday than I am.
Hey, yo, it's the D Pavia, the BBOC, Heisman Energy. Yeah, the champ set free. From the desert heat to the SEC, he turned doubters to believers. Now they can all see. New Mexico roots, but the grind went national. Dual threat flow, stats irrational. Let's go, Diego.
Yeah, this is Brian from New York, just calling in. I'm watching the late slate right now with my newborn son here. He's like 10 days old, and he just took a big right in my hand as I was holding him. And that's pretty much the perfect summary of today's slate. I have been just getting on left and right. It was football and my newborn child, and I am just down tremendously. This slate has just been kicking me in the teeth.
I just cannot get out of my own way. Why on earth did my parents birth a idiot that is going to bet on the Mercer Bears? 27.5. Boom! Let's do it. They're fighting. 21-17 against Auburn. 62-17. What the Dad?
Hey, great call on the Western Michigan under Stuck. 3 minutes in and it's dead. Well done. Stuck. Calling to apologize after I called the Western Michigan Miami under dead after like the first 3 minutes. I love you. Great call. Thank you.
A lesson for everyone out there. Actually, that shouldn't be a lesson because that's some of our best calls. Wait, just wait. This is on Twitter all the time. I'll get tweets. Good call, moron. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, it's 3 minutes in.
The difference is you can delete those tweets, which happens. Yeah. You get a lot of first quarter, but you can't delete the voice.
Thanks for the BBOC. Accountability. Love you too for calling in. So with notes from those, Notre Dame USC, this will be my last piece of advice for the year. But numbers matter over the long run. Those half points, they will add up. Always get the best number. Shop around. Market timing, market entry, always important. That's what you can improve on without that much work to improve your ROI. Collin, I know you'll probably mention the Tennessee Bama over. That was pain for you.
That was insane. Because he did reach over the goal line, and then they all just pretended like it didn't happen. It was the worst beat of the year.
I will say one of my, those weekends where everything goes against you, you're having a rough weekend, and then as you're watching, it almost becomes like self-fulfilling, and you're like, this is what I know that this is gonna happen, and it's gonna fuck me, and then it does. That was the Wake team total under against North Carolina, which I was having a rough day, a rough stretch. First of all, it started off with probably the flukiest touchdown of the year on like a fumble that was just bobbled all over the place, kicked around, and then a Wake Forest player picks it up and runs it for 60 yards. But at the end, Belichick wasn't calling timeouts. Wake, I don't know why they weren't taking knees, but he didn't call any timeouts until fourth down with like 15 seconds left with the game complete. And oh my God, that sent me. Duck, I know you had that too. That was infuriating.
Honestly, one of the worst beats of the entire season, as we thought Wake Forest would struggle. I think if I recall right, we talked about that on the Saturday BBOC live show, and it was just so disgusting in that game against UNC how at Wake Forest, it was so fluky. The first touchdown was really early on, a fumble return touchdown. They had some other fluky long passing play touchdown, something they hadn't secured all season. But then when Bill Belichick chose not to call timeouts and Wake is just running out the clock, and then they get to 1st and goal, and then he starts using his timeouts, it's like, dude, you're down 9. What are you trying to accomplish here? And they get it all the way to
they made 3 stops.
Made 3 stops, and 4th and goal, you can't get off the field. It was disgusting.
Ashford diving towards the pylon, getting in. That was
right. Both you guys clearly hated Wake. If they had upset Georgia Tech because they went for 2 in overtime and didn't get it, would they be the worst 10-win team you can ever remember?
There's some 10-win Liberty teams in there, but
okay, that's fair. We'll say 10-win Power Conference team.
Yeah. I have to go back. They'd be up there. All right, so caller of the year for me.
Yeah, what do you got?
Collin, you voting for Mercer Bears?
Yeah, I mean, first off, we barely talked about that game. And the fact that that game went to 62-17 so fast, and this guy says dad at the end, like he wants to know why he was born. He's questioning his parents, and then he screams for his dad at the end. Have we had anybody yelp for their parents? To me, that's number one here. There is a shout, though, Stuck. I don't know where you're going to go. But the guy, Lemon Maeva, whoever the fuck this guy is, and then the overreach. I love that one. The guy that took Kentucky money line against Texas and said he's having an exorcism. Bro, I think you had the exorcism before you decided to lay a Kentucky money line ticket against Texas.
He also had the UAB over, which
Yes.
UAB
Yeah.
Memphis got down to like the 1 and then couldn't get in against the UAB defense at the end.
You're
Shout
up.
out
I
to the
got
guy with the
Mercer.
newborn. I'm partial to the guy with the newborn.
Yep.
Still betting while getting pooped on. The Diego rap was one of my favorites. Duck, if you had a vote, did one of them make you laugh more than another?
Yeah, I mean, the Diego one was great. The Wake Forest recalling the team total under was great. The guy who called in about the Western Michigan Miami Ohio MAC championship under and then calls back to apologize was pretty good. So I think that's the one I'm voting for.
Calabrese, you had a vote?
It's my last chance to throw some love towards Diego. I don't know if it counted as a rap or a limerick or whatever kind of deaf poetry slam that was, but I'll go ahead and throw my vote behind any Diego love.
All right, final voicemail call here. Thank you to all of you. Can't wait. I already can't wait till next year for the voicemails. The island games, the early season, which is when we're most wrong on some games. Like I already can't wait. Love all of you guys. You guys make those Sunday shows. But the final winner will go with the Mercer Bears caller. True degenerate, sweating FCS, asking why he was even born. The essence of the voicemail. So congrats. Reach out. Well, our producer will reach out to you and we'll get you some Action Network swag as your prize. Appreciate you. And good luck in the national championship. Also, as we do on all of our bowl season previews, it's time for our DraftKings parlay. I will kick things off here. You can go anywhere you want. Prop, side, total. I'm going to go with Elijah Surratt touchdown. Do you know the last time Surratt played an FBS opponent and didn't score a touchdown? It was in August against Old Dominion. He has 15 touchdowns in his last 10 games against FBS opponents, has scored in every single one, has multiple touchdowns in 3 of those games. They get him open in the red zone. The back shoulder throws are a cheat code. They are unguardable. I think he'll find his way into the end zone again. Let's go Elijah Surratt around even money to find the end zone. Collin?
I'm going to go with the Hurricanes plus 5.5 in the first half. I expect them to keep it close. These are two extremely slow offenses at 30.1 seconds per play. Both of them are going to use inside zone. So Kalen Black and Roman Hemby for Indiana, and then Mark Fletcher Jr. Going for Miami. And I don't see Fletcher having a ton of success here. I see Miami falling into passing downs. And with Indiana, I think they're going to be able to move the ball methodically, but what are they going to be able to do once they get in to scoring position? We'll see how that plays out. But that should be a ground game, complete ground game by Indiana, not falling into passing downs. And for Miami, I just don't see Fletcher having a lot of success. And like I said before, all the advantages in the world you would want for Miami would help them in the first half. The home field already playing. They've been in the Dolphins locker room a bunch of times. The turf, the weather. They don't have to travel. Just all kinds of good things for them. Plus, a little bit of hidden things here is that Miami is top 10 of all FBS teams in first half scoring. That took me a little bit by surprise, and most of that comes in the second quarter. And I think the big worry of the game, later in the game, like I said, is that I don't want to back Miami if that defensive line gets gassed and Hemby and Black are just pounding on that defensive line. But the one thing about Miami, I had to go through our own bet labs to check this out. They've covered 6 straight first halves, and on the season, they're 10-4 against the spread in the first half. That's their best time that they play. I don't want anything to do with what Indiana could do to them in the second half. I'm going to stick with a team that's looking to cover their 7th straight first half. I'll take Miami plus 5.5.
Duck?
Yeah, we'll go Indiana full game minus 8.5. We'll say that Miami's able to keep it close in the first half, but then there'll be something in the second half. It could be a missed tackle, which creates an explosive for Indiana. It could be a discipline issue with penalties. It could be red zone defense for Indiana bowing up. Something will create opportunities for Indiana to separate in the second half. Let's say they win by 10.
All right, there you have it. Surratt, touchdown. Indiana, full game. Miami, first half. And Breeze?
Going under 47.5. Miami's slow starts, I think, will continue. That'll aid this under. And when you look into Mendoza and this Indiana offense against 2 top 10 elite defenses, Ohio State and Iowa, they were held in check. Miami has the horses to be able to make this a real street fight in the trenches. As long as we don't have any fluky special teams defensive touchdowns, I think we're going to get this one to the window.
All right, full game under Miami first half, Indiana full game, and Surratt to find pay dirt pays 25-1 at DraftKings. We'll drop a link in the podcast and YouTube description. We'll also tweet it out. Go use that link to instantly add the bet to your bet slip at DraftKings, and let's get it home. The crown is yours. It's time for our 6th annual Gambling Heisman Award, the most prestigious trophy handed out in all of sports betting. To recap the previous winners, taking a trip down memory lane, 2020, Drew Plitt, Ball State. Man, with COVID, that feels like it was 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Ball State. 2021, Bailey Zappi, quarterback, Western Kentucky. I missed the
I believe we got retweeted by his mom a few times.
I missed the Zappy hour, the lightning bolt tweets. I missed that Western Kentucky team. 2022, Michael Pratt, Tulane. That Tulane USC bowl game where Tulane came back from like down 16 late. I was electric. 2023, Noah Fafita, Arizona. I will never forget you, 2023 Arizona. I bet you every week, and you covered almost every week. 2024, Cam Scadaboo, Arizona State. For this year, the 2025 Gambling Heisman Award finalists, we have David Bailey, Texas Tech. Didn't get as much love as Jacob Rodriguez in the actual Heisman voting, but I think he was the most impactful player on that defense and one of the most impactful in the country. And yes, they got blown out against Oregon, but it wasn't because of David Bailey. He showed up in that game and was a menace and did everything that he could have to advance the Red Raiders. Lucky Sutton, running back, San Diego State. San Diego State, like Texas Tech, covering machine all year. Honorable mention, Chris Johnson, their cornerback, but they did it really without a passing game. And they even found a way to cover in the bowl game against North Texas. Brock Lowry, Western Michigan, just battering and bruising his way into cover after cover en route to a MAC championship and a dominant bowl victory. They were against the spread darlings all year. Honorable mention, the Dame Tucker, their star defensive end. Bear Bachmeier, quarterback, BYU. Unbelievable against the number all year. What a performance as a freshman at quarterback for Bear. They just found ways to cover. They were a gambler's best friend, and that includes the bowl game, somehow covering there as well. And then Drew Mestemaker, North Texas. North Texas, one of the best against the spread teams this season. And a special shout out to Mestemaker. I know they didn't cover in the bowl, but for playing in the bowl, he knew he was going to make a ton of money. He knew he was gone, and he stayed with North Texas for their bowl game and got a victory there. So shout out Drew. So David Bailey, Lucky Sutton, Brock Lowry, Bear Bachmeier, Drew Mestemaker. We're going to do a panel vote this year, but I am the deciding factor if there is a tie. So I will. Does everyone have their vote of who you're voting for? Duck, do you have your vote? Okay. Duck, I will start with you.
I'll say this, the Action app has a really cool feature at the end of the year where it sums up your betting experience for the plays that you've logged in the app. It goes through your best leagues, your biggest win, some of the teams that you rode to have success with, the team that cost you the most money. In this case, for me, that was the University of Buffalo. But the team that I had the most success with this season, one of the funner stories in G5 was North Texas. We rode them hard, we hung them up wet. They came to the window for us numerous times. Drew Mestemaker is my vote. What he did with this offense this year for North Texas was so fun to watch. And he parlays that into another P4 gig, so good for him. He's going to get some money. He's going to remain on the big stage. Drew Mestemaker is my vote.
I will say Drew Mestemaker would have been an absolute lock, and I wouldn't even have went to a vote if they won the American. had a big future on them. And also, if they won the American, they would have given Ole Miss. It would have been at least a more fun game with that offense. They were much better than Tulane.
And,
It's unfortunate they didn't win that game. Colin?
FYI, those looking for experience numbers going into 2026, I imagine Oklahoma State's going to be in the top 10. Just get ready. There's going to be more Mesty out there for us.
Who are you voting for, Colin?
I'm going to go with the guy that I cannot stop talking about in betting every week, which is going to be Bear Bachmeier. Let's just say all these names on this list are deserving, in my opinion. I love Brock Lowry. I love Lucky Sutton. That's an electric vertical offense for San Diego State. I think the one thing about Bear Bachmeier that I love is that Jake Retzlaff had an honor code violation and had to leave BYU. And this Bear Bachmeier kid was what, 17 years old when this happened? He was 16 years old when the violation happened. Like, where did Bear Bachmeier come from? Right? And he's not the only one. Like, there's a Tiger. I mean, this whole family. They became national darlings of the BYU community. And if you look at the numbers, 15 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, which I think is going to go down with more time and not as a true freshman, 3,000 passing yards, 11 rushing TDs. The guy had 450 designed yards, and his body is built to run people over. This BYU thing is not going away, especially with LJ Barton saying, nah, I'm good, not going to go to the NFL. I'm going to come back and do this again with Bear Bachmeier. But from a gambling Heisman perspective, this kid is a true freshman. No one knew his name a year ago. It took a Jake Retzlaff honor code violation to get him down to Tulane off of BYU's campus for him to even get this job. And he turned into a gambling darling, similar to North Texas, 10-4 against the spread in the year for BYU. I'm going to go with the true freshman here, Bear Bachmeier.
Calabrese, who are you voting for?
Gonna go with Bailey, Texas Tech, 12-2 against the spread. The highest win percentage from a Power 4 team since the COVID year, tied with Arizona State, which won the Gambling Heisman, Cam Scadaboo, last year. I would have loved to go with the Tokyo Toe. They needed one more cover to get there. He was one of my favorite stories. It goes back to week 0, hitting that walk-off kick against Stanford. What an incredible story. But from a pure gambling perspective, who was an ATM this entire season? It was Texas Tech. I'm not going to get wrapped up in a single game against Oregon and kind of, throw that at their feet and say that they can't be celebrated. They absolutely can be celebrated. They ran roughshod through the Big 12 schedule. And I think it was also a testament to this narrative. Can you buy a roster? Cody Campbell opened his wallet. He made not just the splashy, signings. He built the team from the trenches out. And I think a lot of teams are going to try to emulate that, because if you can dominate the line of scrimmage in any power league, you have a chance to win it and make the playoffs. So I'm going to go with Bailey and the Red Raiders.
All right, so the official winner of the 2025 Gambling Heisman is David Bailey, Texas Tech. Texas Tech, dominant against the spread, easy covers most of the year. And like I said, he did everything that he could have against Oregon to end the season. That defense was incredible all year long. Congrats to David Bailey, the first defender to win the Gambling Heisman Award. And fitting, since what did Rodriguez finish 4th in the actual Heisman voting? 4th or 5th? I think it should have been Bailey. He was the most impactful defender for them.
And
so he wins the Gambling Heisman. Go ahead.
And shut down Bear Bachmeier twice.
Yes.
So that's important too.
Yep. But shout out Mestamaker, Lowry, and Sutton as well. That'll do it for us here on the Big Bets on Campus podcast for the college football season. Sincere thanks to our producer, David, to Colin, to Mike, to Duck. Every week, grinding the entire season. It was a very successful season for the podcast. But most importantly, we want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, for calling in, for listening to the voicemails, for following along, and just the ups and downs of a college football season. There is nothing better than those fully loaded Saturday slates. I already can't wait until we start up again next year. Can't wait to run it back with all of you guys. You were great. And by the way, if you want to follow any of the bets we discussed today one final time, look for the quick slip link in the video and podcast description, or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. We will have one final live show on Monday before the national championship game, so be on the lookout for that on Action Network's YouTube page and on Twitter. And as I mentioned before, now the football has come to an end. Our college hoops team, including myself, will take you through the spring with everything you need to know heading toward the NCAA tournament. I know Duck and Breeze, you want to follow them for college basketball. You guys are going to be involved in the podcast?
What's that?
You're going to be involved in the podcast?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We got Wednesday show with Christian Ojakjian, and we're gonna find out, how we're gonna populate the rest of the shows. But obviously, we're gonna get back with the live shows on Saturday as well. So it's gonna be fun to cut it up and start building that futures portfolio. I already got a Houston 17-1 in there. It's time to add on to it.
Yeah, I'll be doing some weekend previews too with Root and others moving forward. And make sure you follow us all on the award-winning Action Network app. Follow Duck especially if you like unders, Duck. Every day I just see Duck's population of unders. But thank you so much again to everyone for following us. You are the best podcast audience in the world. Let's do it again next year, but let's close out the season with one final winning day. Till next time, cheers.